I was an English teacher in Vietnam. Because I entered the jungle, I regretted it and almost lost my life. My name is Sarah Branch. A few years ago, when I was 24, I left my home state of Utah and moved abroad to teach English in Vietnam. After graduating from BYU with a teaching degree, I realized I needed more from life. I wanted to travel, embrace other cultures, and have memorable, life-changing experiences. Feeling trapped in my everyday life in Salt Lake City, where winters were long and summers short, I decided to choose my own path, a life with fulfillment and few regrets. I had already earned my teaching degree, and with an ESL certification, I could finally pursue my dream of traveling while earning a reasonable income. There were so many places I dreamed of going, like South America or Southeast Asia. I was drawn to places with warm weather and beautiful beaches. Eventually, I landed on Vietnam. It wasn't a random choice. I'm 1/4 Vietnamese, though my appearance doesn't show it. I thought, why not explore the sun, beaches, and my heritage all in one? Vietnam had a high demand for English teachers, and after a few online interviews and some visa complications, I packed up and moved across the world. I was assigned to a coastal town in central Vietnam, right along the South China Sea. English teachers don't get to choose where they're placed, but if I had the option, I couldn't have picked a more perfect place. For the sake of the story, I'll refer to the town as Bien Hoa Han, which translates to Sea of Promise. Bien Hoa Han was a modest coastal town nestled inside a tropical bay, with the whitest sands and clearest blue waters. The town was gorgeous, with vibrant yellow buildings designed to reflect the sun during the hottest months. It had stunning Oriental and French colonial architecture, and the local cuisine was both delicious and affordable, around 90 cents for a meal. I quickly became obsessed with the variety of coffee in Vietnam, having tried around 24 flavors. I loved the local charm, from the colorful plastic chairs scattered all around the town to the laid-back atmosphere. Whether I was dining on fresh local food or sipping coffee, I'd always find a different colored chair to sit in and watch the world go by. And teaching? It was incredible. My classes were full of adorable 7- and 8-year-olds, and my colleagues were welcoming and kind. They never called me by my first name, instead greeting me with Chow Em or Chow Em Guy, meaning hello little sister. The town felt like paradise. The mix of culture, food, and warmth made it an experience of a lifetime. It was the life I had always dreamed of, and I had the chance to immerse myself fully in it, exploring both the beautiful place I was living and the deeper connections I had to my heritage. When I wasn't teaching or grading papers, I spent most of my leisure time at Bien Hoa Han's beach. I'd feel the sun on my skin while soaking up the breathtaking scenery or curling up with a good book. The beach was never empty, mostly Western backpackers and surfers. While I wasn't tanning or memorizing every detail of the bay's geography, I often watched enviously as others surfed the waves. As much as I loved Vietnam, the paradise I'd found was marred by the constant garbage pollution. There was trash everywhere, in the town, on the beach, and even in the ocean. Worse were the rats, cockroaches, and other vermin that came with it. Still, Bien Hoa Han was special to me, and despite these flaws, it would always be my promised land. After 4 months, with 3 months left in my contract, I decided I wanted to stay in Vietnam, possibly even relocating to another part of the country. I also made a goal to learn Vietnamese, especially since most people didn't speak English. Instead of traveling, I spent most of my free time at the same beach, sitting in the sand while studying my second language. One day, while lost in my own world, I looked up to find a tall, tan tourist standing over me, holding a surfboard. He had come in from the waves, thinking I'd said something to him. I explained I was just speaking Vietnamese to myself and didn't realize anyone could hear me. We both had a good laugh, and he introduced himself as Tyler, an American from California who was in Vietnam just to surf. He was the tannest guy I'd ever seen, with tattoos from his travels and long brown hair often tied in a man bun. Tyler asked what I was doing in Vietnam, and later, he invited me to join him and his friends for a drink at a local bar. Though I didn't drink much, I agreed, and later that day, I met him at the bar. He introduced me to his friends, Chris, loud and funny, Brody and Haley, a couple from New Zealand. Tyler and Chris had met Brody and Haley while surfing in Australia, and together, the four had been traveling the world. They lived a free lifestyle, working as vloggers and content creators, traveling every couple of months to places like Hawaii, Costa Rica, and Bali. They didn't see the point in staying in one place and working a regular job. Their lifestyle made sense to me, and it was similar to my reasons for being in Vietnam. The four were leaving Bien Hoa Han soon, but when I told them I hadn't explored the rest of Vietnam, they insisted I come alone. They even invited me to surf with them the next day. Though I'd never surfed, I knew I had to take the chance. Coming all the way from Utah, I couldn't let new opportunities pass me by. The next morning, nursing my first hangover, I caught my first wave. I was nervous, especially in front of Tyler, but after a few tries, I got the hang of it. Chris wouldn't stop calling me Johnny Utah, a reference I didn't understand. I also missed many of their movie quotes, like Charlie Don't Surf, and wondered who the heck Charlie was. By that afternoon, we were back at the bar, and I spent some girl time with Haley. She was kind and genuinely interested in my life, or maybe she was just grateful not to be the only girl in the group anymore. She told me Chris was extremely annoying, no matter where they went, and even though Brody was usually quiet and sensible, she hated how he acted around the guys. After 5 beers, Brody suddenly jumped up and started doing a native New Zealand war dance while Chris or Tyler filmed. I was having a wonderful time with the group, anticipating all the places Haley said we would visit in Vietnam. But in the corner of my eye, I kept noticing a strange man staring at us. I thought maybe we were being too loud, but the man was simply watching us with curiosity. A few minutes later, he approached with 3 strangers behind him and casually asked if we were having a good time. We awkwardly agreed, and he introduced himself as Aaron, a documentary filmmaker. Aaron looked to be in his early 30s but dressed like a middle-aged tourist, wearing an overly large Hawaiian shirt to hide his stomach, and glasses that made him look scholarly. Behind him were 2 men and a young woman. One of the men was extremely hairy, with a beard almost as long as his hair, while the other was clean-cut and short, holding a notepad. The young woman, not much older than me, had maroon-dyed hair and sleeve tattoos, though she was oddly overdressed for the tropical weather. After some brief pleasantries, Aaron explained they were documentary filmmakers investigating the disappearances of tourists in the area. I had no idea what he was talking about, and Tyler, who had only been in Bien Hoa Han for a couple of days, was just as clueless. When Haley asked if I knew anything, Aaron turned his full attention to me. I explained I had heard rumors about tourists disappearing but didn't know much about it. Meanwhile, I noticed the short man behind Aaron was writing down every word I said. Aaron, almost desperately, asked, "Have you heard of the local legends?" Tyler, Chris, and Brody drunkenly inquired about these legends, and Aaron explained that, according to local stories, there were creatures deep in the jungles and caves, humanoid beings glimpsed only by farmers or fishermen. Feeling like we were being told a bedtime story, Chris eagerly asked, "What do these creatures look like?" Aaron said the descriptions were varied, but they were always humanoid in form. We all laughed at the ridiculousness, and Brody bluntly asked, "You actually believe that?" Aaron smirked but didn't respond, instead sharing that similar sightings had been reported during the Vietnam War by American soldiers. "You really don't know about the cryptids of the Vietnam War?" Aaron asked, surprised we hadn't heard about them. He then explained that soldiers had encountered several types of these creatures in the jungles. "You never heard of the rock apes? The devil creatures of Quang Binh? The big yellows?" Aaron asked, explaining that American soldiers had encountered small Bigfoot-like creatures and glowing lizard people in the jungles. These creatures supposedly threw rocks and lived deep in the cave systems. Tyler, feeling ridiculous, asked, "So, you believe the reason tourists are missing is because of Vietnamese Bigfoot and lizard people?" Aaron and his team didn't seem insulted but rather amused by the ridicule. "That's why we're here," Aaron explained. "We're paranormal investigators and filmmakers. No one has tried to solve the mystery of the Vietnam Triangle. We're here in Bien Hoa Han to interview locals and follow any leads. Though I found it kooky, I tried to show some respect." Tyler, Chris, and Brody, however, were clearly enjoying themselves at Aaron's expense. They asked, "Is there a Vietnamese Loch Ness monster we haven't heard of?" Aaron, unfazed, replied, "Glad you asked. According to a group of fishermen we interviewed, there's an unmapped trail in the nearby jungle. No one knows where it leads, and anyone who tries to find it never returns." Though the stories of creatures seemed absurd, hearing about a hidden trail where tourists had disappeared unsettled us. Maybe there were no creatures, but the idea of an unmarked trail in the jungle where people could easily get lost felt real. Tyler, Chris, Brody, and Haley fell silent, acknowledging the danger. Aaron then mentioned, "We're heading out tomorrow to find the trail. If you guys don't have plans, why don't you join us? What's the point of traveling if there's no danger involved?" Expecting someone to decline, Tyler, Chris, and Brody exchanged glances and surprisingly agreed. Haley protested, not wanting to wander around the jungle where tourists had vanished. "Come on, Hale, it'll be fun. Sarah? You'll come, won't you?" Tyler urged. "Yeah. Johnny Utah wants to come, right?" Chris teased. Haley looked at me, desperate for me to side with her. Everyone else did, too. Feeling torn, I hesitated and finally said, "I don't know what I want to do." Though there was division among us, it was ultimately decided by majority vote, and I reluctantly agreed to go. I reminded myself that I came to Vietnam for memorable, life-changing experiences, and this was an opportunity one couldn't miss. Though the legends were probably just stories, I wasn't going to let fear stop me from having the adventure I came for. Later that night, while Brody and Haley spent time alone and Chris was with Aaron's crew, Tyler invited me for a walk on the beach under the moonlight. As we strolled barefoot, avoiding garbage, Tyler asked if I was truly okay with the next day's plans and reminded me not to feel pressured. I assured him I was fine and that it should be fun. "Don't worry," he said, "I'll keep an eye on you." I'm embarrassed to admit it, but I had a crush on Tyler. He was tall, adventurous, and the kind of person I wanted to be, traveling the world and meeting new people. I worried he might find me boring, a small-town girl with only one travel story. But soon, I would have a new story, this one. The next morning, we met Aaron and his crew, taking separate taxis out of Bien Hoa Hen. Following them down a highway, we ended up in a dense valley where Aaron's taxi stopped. He flagged us down and explained we had to cut through the valley and into the jungle. Aaron's plan was to hike through the jungle, find the mysterious trail, document it, and then explore caves where these creatures were said to lurk. We followed a narrow stream down the slope of the valley, starting our hike. Chris mockingly yelled, "All right, everyone. Watch out for lizard people, Bigfoot, and Charlie." I had no idea who Charlie was. The hike was fun, despite the heat, mosquitoes, and the jungle's relentless humidity. It was a cloudy day, so I was hoping for rain. We were making good progress, but Aaron's crew insisted on stopping every 10 minutes to film, which got a little annoying. I got to know Aaron's team better, including Steve, the hairy guy, Miles the cameraman, and Sophie, who had maroon hair and sleeve tattoos. She was from the Appalachians and had a tough upbringing, learning to use a firearm by the age of 10. We bonded over our shared understanding of hardship, and she had a quirky habit. Whenever we heard something unusual, she'd say, "If you see something, no you didn't. If you hear something, no you didn't." After hours of hiking, there was still no sign of the trail Aaron had promised. Our group started to complain. We felt like we were just trekking through an ordinary jungle, not a legendary one. Why weren't we exploring places like Hughes City or Ha Long Bay? I didn't voice it, but I, too, began to question what we were doing. Just as we were about to turn back, we finally stumbled upon something. By the afternoon, we finally found the trail, a narrow path covered in thick vegetation. If Haley hadn't stopped to tie her shoelaces, we might have missed it completely. It was clear no one had walked this way in a long time, and we didn't know why, but we were relieved to have found it. Aaron and his team acted like they'd made an archaeological discovery, but the rest of us were just happy that the day hadn't been wasted. As we moved forward, eager to continue, we had to wait for Aaron's crew to finish filming. But since they were so caught up in their documentary, it quickly became too late to continue. The sun in Vietnam usually sets around 6 p.m., but in the jungle, it sets much earlier. So, we set up camp for the night. I didn't own a tent, but Haley suggested we bunk together like it was a sleepover, which meant Brody reluctantly had to sleep with Chris. That night, bugs and strange jungle noises kept us on edge, but Tyler started a campfire, and we made s'mores while telling stories. I wasn't a fan of scary stories, but Aaron intentionally told the one about Skinwalker Ranch since he knew I was from Utah. It definitely gave me more reasons not to return home. Tyler, on the other hand, told stories I enjoyed. One of my favorites was when he was backpacking through the Bolivian Amazon. A man in a boat offered him a drink with dead snakes floating inside, claiming it was vodka and the snakes were just for flavor. Tyler foolishly accepted the drink, only to soon begin foaming at the mouth. The local guide told him, "Don't worry, senor. It's just snake poison. You probably drank too much." Apparently, drinking snake venom over time makes your body immune to snake bites. Though I was having fun, I called it an early night. The heat was intense, and most of the group was smoking, which made me think maybe that's how the soldiers saw strange things in the jungle, not creatures, but hallucinations from being stoned. The jungle was still unsettling, even without monsters. The heat in Vietnam, especially at night, was difficult to sleep through. Even though I didn't believe in monsters, the jungle's eerie sounds kept me awake. The next morning, I woke up early to stretch and enjoy the peaceful morning. I was the only one up, and in the dim light of the jungle, I felt calm. Since everyone was still asleep, I decided to make breakfast. As I rummaged through the backpacks, I suddenly felt like I was being watched. Turning around, I saw a young man standing about 50 feet away, blending into the jungle with his torn, olive-green clothing. He looked too far away for me to make out his face, but I noticed a dark substance trickling down his left shoulder. As I focused, I realized it was a burn mark, like he had been badly scorched. What disturbed me more was that on the scorched side of his head, where his ear should have been, there was just a hollow space. I hadn't noticed at first, But the man's tattered green clothes weren't just any jungle gear, they were the same shade of green worn by American soldiers in the 60s. I rubbed my eyes, hoping I was imagining things, but when I looked back, he was still there, staring at me. I couldn't look away, frozen in place. Then, he spoke words I'll never forget: "Careful, miss. Charlie's everywhere." Before I could process what he said, he vanished in the blink of an eye. I felt numb all over, as if the moment had paralyzed me. I wanted to cry, not out of fear, but from an overwhelming, inexplicable sadness. I didn't know if I had hallucinated, or if what I saw was real. I chose to keep it to myself, not wanting to seem insane to the others, especially since Aaron and Sophie believed every tale under the sun. Despite my best efforts to hide it, everyone could tell something was wrong. I couldn't even finish my breakfast, and Haley noticed how pale I looked. Worried I was sick, they offered to take me back to Bien Hoa Hen, but I insisted I was fine, just a stomach bug, nothing more. After packing up, we continued along the trail. Although I convinced myself the encounter was just a hallucination, I couldn't stop replaying the words, "Charlie's everywhere." Who was Charlie? When I asked Chris about it, he explained that Charlie was the name American soldiers used for the enemy during the Vietnam War. What if I wasn't hallucinating? What if what I saw was a ghost, an American soldier trying to warn me about something still lurking in the jungle? Or was there truth to the disappearances, and Charlie meant something else entirely? The more I thought about it, the harder it was to dismiss the encounter as a trick of the jungle. Growing up in the church, I was naturally superstitious, but seeing what I did made it impossible to ignore. What was it Sophie said? If you see something, no you didn't. If you hear something, no you didn't. Even so, I couldn't shake the unease. I stayed strictly on the trail, convinced that wandering into the jungle would lead to disaster. Tyler, Chris, and Brody, getting bored with all the stops, pulled out a football and began tossing it around. They invited Haley and me to play, but I declined, still haunted by the warning. As the day went on, it seemed like nothing more exciting would happen. But unfortunately, something tragic was about to unfold. By mid-afternoon, we made good progress along the trail. The heat was intense, but the sky blessed us with a light rain that kept us cool. As Aaron's crew stopped to film, Tyler pulled out the football, and the guys started throwing it around the jungle. Chris ran ahead, shouting, "Brody, hit me up." Brody threw the ball, and as Chris leapt to catch it, he just vanished. 1 minute he was there, the next he was gone. Tyler and Brody called for him, but there was no response. Haley and I quickly left the trail to check on them. Then, we heard Tyler scream, "Chris!" The sound of that scream still haunts me. When we caught up, we saw Tyler and Brody standing over a hole in the ground. It was 6 feet deep, and inside was Chris. But it wasn't just a hole, it was a death trap. Chris had fallen into the hole, where rusted metal spikes protruded from the ground. They had pierced him in multiple places, through his wrist, leg, and ribcage. He looked like he was crucified, face down on those spikes. Tyler and Brody carefully climbed down into the hole to reach him. When they did, it was clear Chris wasn't alive, one of the spikes had gone through his throat. The image of his lifeless body on those spikes is something I'll never forget. It looked like someone had toppled over an idol, one of Christ on the cross. When Aaron, Sophie, Steve, and Miles caught up, instead of being shocked or grieving, Miles immediately began filming. Tyler and Brody were furious. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Tyler yelled. When Miles refused to stop filming, Tyler ripped the camera out of his hands. Aaron, coming to Miles' aid, shouted, "Leave him alone. This is a documentary." Without hesitation, Brody hit Aaron in the face, knocking his glasses off. Despite the shock, Haley and I tried to calm things down. I stepped in front of Tyler, and Haley pulled Brody away. After the commotion died down, Tyler announced, "That's it. We're getting out of here." He grabbed me by the arm protectively, and we started heading back the way we came, while Brody led Haley. As we left, I thought we were done with the nightmare. But then, Aaron's voice called out, "If you insist on going back, just watch out for mines." "Mines?" we asked, confused. Aaron explained, 16% of Vietnam is still contaminated by landmines and other explosives, at least 600,000. They could literally be anywhere. Even with a potentially broken nose, Aaron couldn't resist lecturing us about the dangers, even in this moment of chaos. Tyler was furious. "And you're only telling us this now? We're in the middle of the jungle. Why didn't you say something earlier?" Aaron tried to defend himself, but Tyler wasn't having it. "Would you have come with us if we did? Besides, who comes to Vietnam without fact-checking the dangers? I thought you were travelers." It was clear we were leaving. For Tyler, Brody, and even Haley, the feeling was simple: if Aaron and his crew wanted to keep risking their lives for a documentary, they could. We were getting out of there. Once we did, we'd report Chris' death to the authorities so they could recover his body. We couldn't take him with us, but we made sure he was covered, so no scavengers could disturb him. We regretted this whole journey, but we knew the worst was probably behind us. What I regretted most was not insisting Sophie come with us. She was a good person, and she didn't deserve this. None of us did. As we hurried back along the trail, I couldn't stop piecing things together. The same day the apparition warned me about the jungle's dangers, Chris tragically died. Was that what the soldier's ghost meant by Charlie? Was he warning me about the remnants of the war, the landmines and traps left behind? Aaron said there were 600,000 explosives still in Vietnam, and I realized, though I had tried to dismiss the ghostly encounter, I had heeded its warning and stayed on the trail. That likely saved my life. We came to find what happened to the missing tourists, but now I wondered if they met the same fate as Chris. Did they step on a landmine, or did they fall into a trap like he did? Was that the cause of the disappearances? The next day, we made our way out of the jungle and back to Bien Hoa Hen. We reported everything to the authorities, and a full search and rescue mission was launched for Aaron's team. The bomb disposal unit found landmines and another trap, but no sign of the missing tourists. No bodies, no belongings. It seemed we were the first people to venture into that jungle for a long time. But there's something else. The rescue team that went in to find Aaron, Sophie, Steve, and Miles never found them. They never found anything. Whatever the Vietnam Triangle was, it had claimed them. To this day, I feel overwhelming guilt that we found our way out while they never did. I don't know what happened to the missing tourists. I don't know what happened to Sophie, Aaron, and the others. I don't know if the creatures in the jungle were real, or if it was all just stories. But whatever it was I saw in the jungle, I choose to believe it saved my life. And for that reason, I've renewed my faith. I'm still teaching English and traveling the world. But for as long as I live, I will never step into a jungle again.